The Broken Dragon. In the sprawling chaos of the galactic hub, where 1,000 species traded beneath artificial stars, darkness pooled in forgotten corners. The massive interstellar trading post hummed with life, but not all of it was kind. Deep in the lower levels, where maintenance tunnels twisted like veins through the station's belly, a small dragon named Flicker pressed himself against the cold metal walls. He was no bigger than a house cat, his once brilliant scales now dulled to the color of ash. His wings, delicate as butterfly membranes, hung limp against his trembling body. The other dragons had been here again today. Their cruel laughter still echoed in his memory as they knocked him down, their massive claws leaving fresh scratches across his already scarred hide. Pathetic, they had sneered. What kind of dragon can't even fly? Flicker's golden eyes, once bright with curiosity, now reflected only pain and resignation. He had tried to fly countless times, his wings beating frantically as he launched himself from crates and platforms. But each attempt ended the same way, with him crashing to the ground while others watched and mocked. Even the maintenance bots pushed him aside like debris, their mechanical arms shoving him out of their predetermined paths. To everyone in the hub, he was nothing, a mistake, a failure, something to be ignored or tormented. As the station's artificial night cycle began, Flicker curled up in his usual hiding spot, a discarded cargo crate wedged between two massive support beams. The metal was cold against his scales, but it was better than facing the world outside. Here, in the darkness, he could pretend he didn't exist. But deep within his chest, beneath layers of hurt and humiliation, something still glowed. It was barely a spark now, flickering like a candle in a storm, but it refused to die completely. Flicker didn't know what it was or why it persisted. He only knew that as long as it remained, some part of him would continue to hope. Tomorrow would bring more of the same, more taunts, more loneliness, more pain. But tonight, in his metal cocoon, Flicker closed his eyes and tried to remember what it felt like to dream. An unexpected friend. 7-year-old Alara Tannen had never seen anything like the galactic hub. Her golden hair caught the artificial light as she pressed her face against the observation windows, watching massive creatures lumber past while jellyfish-like beings floated overhead. Her father, Ambassador Tannen, was somewhere in the diplomatic sectors, locked in crucial trade negotiations that would determine the fate of several star systems. But Alara's attention was captured by something else entirely, the sounds drifting up from the lower levels. While the upper decks rang with commerce and conversation, she could hear something different below, loneliness. Her father had warned her to stay close to their quarters, but curiosity was stronger than caution. With the practiced stealth of a child who'd spent her life in embassy buildings, Alara slipped past the security detail and made her way toward the maintenance levels. The lower decks were darker, filled with the smell of oil and ozone. Discarded machinery created a maze of shadows, and Alara picked her way carefully through the debris. Then she heard it, a soft, heartbroken whimper that made her chest tighten. Following the sound, she discovered a battered cargo crate tucked between support beams. Inside, barely visible in the dim light, was the smallest dragon she'd ever seen. His scales were dull and scratched, his wings folded tightly against his trembling body. When he noticed her, he let out a weak hiss, but his golden eyes were filled more with fear than aggression. "Hey there," Alara whispered, kneeling but keeping her distance. "I'm not going to hurt you." The dragon, she decided to call him Flicker because of the faint shimmer his scales still held, watched her warily. From her small satchel, she pulled out a piece of dried fruit left over from her lunch. "Are you hungry?" she asked gently. "It's not much, but it's yours if you want it." Flicker's nostrils flared as he caught the scent. His instincts warred with his distrust, but hunger won. Slowly, cautiously, he crept forward and snatched the offering, his small jaws working quickly. For the first time in days, he felt something other than pain. Alara smiled, her heart swelling with warmth. "See? We can be friends." This time, Flicker didn't growl. Instead, he tilted his head, studying this strange little human who had shown him kindness he'd forgotten existed. Something in her voice soothed the tiny ember in his chest, making it glow just a little brighter. As Alara made her way back to the upper levels, both she and Flicker felt something they hadn't experienced in a long time: hope. Seeds of trust. Alara returned the next morning with her satchel fuller than before. She had raided the ambassadorial kitchens, gathering dried meat, fruit, and even a small slice of cake. Her father's security detail was busy with morning briefings, making her escape easier than expected. When she reached the alley, Flicker was waiting. Not hiding in his crate this time, but crouched nearby, his golden eyes following her approach with cautious curiosity rather than fear. "Hi, Flicker," she said, settling down a few feet away. The name felt right on her tongue, and somehow the little dragon seemed to understand it was meant for him. She laid out the food carefully, watching as he approached with less hesitation than before. As he ate, she talked to him in soft, encouraging tones. "You're so beautiful," she murmured. "I bet you could fly higher than anyone if you wanted to." Flicker paused mid-chew, his gaze snapping to her face as if searching for mockery. Finding none, he let out a small chirp, the first sound he'd made that wasn't offensive or pained. Alara giggled. "See? You've got a voice too." As the days passed, their routine became sacred. Alara would slip away each morning, bringing food and water, but more importantly, bringing her unwavering belief in him. Slowly, Flicker began to change. His posture straightened, his eyes regained their spark, and he even began venturing out of the shadows to meet her halfway across the alley. One afternoon, Alara pulled a small handheld mirror from her bag. "Look," she said, holding it up to him. Flicker tilted his head in confusion, then saw his reflection. He recoiled at first, then crept closer, staring at the image of the small, battered dragon looking back at him. "You're not scary," Alara said softly. "You're just hurt. But you're healing, I can see it." For the first time, Flicker chirped in what sounded like agreement and gently nudged her hand with his snout. It was the smallest gesture, but it represented something enormous: trust. "You know what I think?" Alara said, scratching gently behind his small horns. "I think you're not meant to hide forever. You're a dragon, you're meant to soar." The ember in Flicker's chest pulsed stronger, fed by her words and her unwavering faith. For the first time since he could remember, he began to believe that maybe, just maybe, she was right. The awakening. 2 weeks into their friendship, everything changed. Flicker had grown stronger under Alara's care. His scales had regained some of their luster, and the constant fear in his eyes had been replaced by something that looked almost like confidence. He had even attempted a few small flights, managing to glide short distances before landing gracefully instead of crashing. But their secret meetings couldn't last forever. That morning, as Alara made her way through the maintenance tunnels, she heard voices, angry, familiar voices that made her blood run cold. A group of older children from the diplomatic quarter had somehow found their way down here, and they were standing around Flicker's hiding spot, laughing cruelly. "Look at this pathetic thing," one of them sneered, poking at Flicker with a metal rod. "It's even smaller than I thought." Flicker cowered in his crate, all the progress he'd made seemingly vanishing as the old fear returned. The children continued their torment, kicking at his hiding place and throwing debris. "Stop it." Alara's voice rang out as she ran toward them. "Leave him alone." The older children turned, surprised. "Oh, it's the ambassador's brat," their leader said with a smirk. "This your pet monster?" "He's not a monster," Alara said fiercely, stepping protectively in front of Flicker's crate. "He's my friend." They laughed, and one of them shoved Alara aside. She hit the ground hard, crying out as her knee scraped against the metal floor. The sound of her pain cut through Flicker like a blade. Something inside him snapped. The ember that Alara had been nurturing with her kindness suddenly blazed into an inferno. Flicker felt power surge through his small body, power he'd never known he possessed. His scales began to glow with inner fire, shifting from dull gray to brilliant gold and crimson. With a roar that shook the maintenance tunnel, Flicker burst from his hiding place. His wings, no longer fragile, spread wide and caught the air with perfect control. He soared upward, his body wreathed in flames that didn't burn but proclaimed his awakening. The bullies scrambled backward in terror as Flicker landed between them and Alara, his eyes blazing like molten gold. When he opened his mouth, fire poured forth, not enough to truly harm, but enough to send them fleeing in panic. As their screams faded into the distance, Flicker turned to Alara, his flames dimming to a gentle glow. She was staring at him in wonder, her scraped knee forgotten. "Flicker," she whispered. He approached slowly, nuzzling her hand with the same gentleness he'd always shown her, but now she could feel the power thrumming beneath his scales. He had found himself at last, not despite her love, but because of it. "You were right," she said, tears of joy streaming down her face. "You were meant to soar. Forever guardian." News of the small dragon's transformation spread quickly through the Galactic hub. Ambassador Tannen was initially concerned when security reported the incident, but when he saw his daughter's joy and witnessed Flicker's gentle devotion to her, his heart softened. "It seems you've made quite an impression on our new friend," he told Alara as they watched Flicker practice his flying in one of the hub's larger cargo bays. The other dragons who had once mocked Flicker now watched from a distance with something approaching respect. His flames burned brighter than many dragons twice his size, and his loyalty to Alara was absolute. But more importantly, he had found something they lacked: purpose. Flicker never grew to be the largest dragon, but size no longer mattered. He had become something far more valuable: a protector, a friend, a being who understood that true strength came not from cruelty but from love. When the diplomatic mission ended and it was time for the Tannens to leave, there was never any question that Flicker would come with them. He had found his person, just as she had found him. Years later, as Alara grew into a skilled diplomat like her father, Flicker remained by her side. He was her guardian in dangerous negotiations, her companion in lonely moments, and her reminder that kindness could transform even the most broken souls. Those who met them often marveled at their bond, but Alara always explained it simply: he was never broken. He was just waiting for someone to see who he really was. And in the vastness of space, as they traveled from world to world bringing peace where there had been conflict, Flicker's flames served as a beacon of hope, proof that love could overcome any darkness, and that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could awaken the greatest powers. The baby dragon who had once cowered in the shadows now soared among the stars, his fire burning eternal, his heart forever bound to the girl who had shown him that he was worthy of love. Together, they were unstoppable. The end.